Welcome to the TechSpective podcast. My guest is Omar, and I'm already forgetting your last name, Tawakol.
Yep.
All right. So Omar, if you could, give some background on yourself and your company, and let's get to it.
Awesome. Honored to be here, Tony. Thanks for inviting me. My name's Omar Tawakol. As you said, I'm the CEO of a company called Rembrand. And, a lot of what I've been doing in the past has really been leading up to this. A while back, I created a company called Blue Kai, which was one of the leaders in data platform and data targeting for the ad industry. And we had a thesis long time ago that people should be advertising to people based on their interests and behaviors, not based on the words on a page that they're reading. And that became a very interesting business. It grew, and Oracle acquired it in 2014. It became the Oracle Data Cloud, and it grew into a $500 million a year data business powering advertising. I stayed there for a few years, and I left, and I started an AI company that was in the voice space. We did closed captions, transcriptions, translations, intent detection, stuff like that to help make meetings productive. And 2 years in, Cisco acquired us, integrated us into the WebEx platform to do closed captions and transcription and WebEx calling and WebEx contact center. And we powered 1 billion minutes every 90 days. So it was a very high volume AI business. So a bunch of those teams, got together with me after I'd stayed at Cisco for 3 years, and we got together and created Rembrand. And I'll tell you all about Rembrand. But Rembrand, it's as if it's the baby of those two businesses. It is both impacting the marketing business, and it is also an AI business.
Okay. Well, I had started to tell you before we actually kicked off the podcast, but what intrigued me about wanting to have this conversation with you is that, like I said, whenever I see a billboard, I watch a commercial, I hear a radio commercial, my brain is always in this sort of marketing mode of trying to decipher, like, all right, who would this resonate with? And frankly, even though I'm in the marketing business, professionally, I'm kind of jaded and cynical when it comes to marketing in general. Like when I see like, for instance, you always see whenever there's like an empty billboard that isn't currently leased, and it says something like, does advertising work? It just did. And I'm always like, well, no, it didn't, because yes, I saw that billboard, but I'm not calling you to buy your ad space, so it didn't work. Like you got my attention, but you didn't close the deal because that wasn't compelling. It didn't mean anything to me. And similarly, like if I'm watching a football game or something, it's like, there's a Ford F-150 or a Chevy Silverado commercial, and it's like, I'm generally anti pickup truck as a concept, but so I'm biased from that perspective in the first place. But when I even for vehicles I do like, when I watch commercials of like vehicles, I'm always like, okay, but that's not convincing me to buy. Like I'm either in the market for a vehicle or I'm not. Yeah. And if I am in the market for a vehicle, I already have an idea of what I want. Like I don't need Toyota to advertise in order for me to go buy their car. So anyway, so that's kind of where my brain's at all the time. And when thinking about this in terms of the generational aspects of, I grew up watching network television, and you didn't have an option of skipping commercials, and that just you could leave the room, but it was a different model, and we and I'm going to date myself some, but like businesses, one of the main things was yellow pages advertising and newspaper advertising, and all of these methods have more or less died out. Those like don't exist anymore for the most part. There are still TV commercials, but I feel like they're much less effective because I personally rarely watch them. I skip past all that stuff.
Well, that is exactly why we created Rembrand. So I'm going to start by asking you a question. You and most of your friends, do you think this weekend you're going to watch any of Netflix, Amazon Prime, or HBO? Will you do any of those?
Probably.
Yeah. Okay, great. So what I find when I talk to marketers is they spend their day funding interruptive ads that stop the content and force people to watch it. And then they go home and they pay money to subscription services to avoid those same ads that they funded during the day. That's why Rembrand has a business. So let me jump in and tell you what we do. So first off is our mission at Rembrand is to use photorealistic AI to seamlessly integrate brands into the content that people love while capturing consumer attention, but without interrupting the content. So that's the key, is we want to disrupt the decades-old equation that says you're gonna get something free, but we're gonna interrupt your show and jam something down your throat, because the new generations of watchers are doing everything to skip and avoid those ads. So how are you going to enter the consciousness of the consumer if you're chasing those old methods? If you don't mind, I'd like to kind of like, just to bring this home, show you a couple videos that kind of illustrate, how bad the problem is, and
Sure.
What maybe it could look like if we thought differently. So first off, what does interruptive advertising look like? Let's look at kind of a video on YouTube that's organic, it's about meditation, and then let's look what happens when the ad comes up.
Hello, my loves. Welcome to a guided meditation.
Right? Because everybody wants to interrupt their guided meditation with an ad.
Right.
And so,
and I actually meditate. I meditate regularly, so I could say that would be very disruptive if you just got done telling me get ready for my guided meditation and then you pop in an ad.
Yeah. And so if you look at like the product placement industry, which is a form of native intrinsic advertising, this has been growing every year, double digits for like 20 years, because advertisers know they need another way to get into people's consciousness. But there are problems with product placement as exists today. So let me show you an example.
I'm going in. Cap, can you keep him occupied?
What do you think I've been doing?
10 million.
Right. So it's great if you've got a lot of money and you can wait 2 to 3 years in advance of a movie to negotiate. It just doesn't scale well. And if you look at like the sponsored post world, it's kind of similar. You basically have to wait, 4 to 6 weeks, you negotiate, you send and ship product. And because it's so manual, you only deal with the biggest influencers who are going to be very expensive, and you don't deal with the 50 million other ones who have high engagement, good audience, who match your content, who have very passionate audiences. It's just too manual. So what we decided to do was essentially automate this and make it as easy as running a campaign. And you ship no products, you don't even negotiate, you just run it like you would run an AdSense for virtual product placement. Let me show you what it looks like, and then let's just stop and talk.
Meditation by Lavender. I'm happy you made the choice to meditate today.
So as you see there, those 3D, bottles of Garnier come in. This is a 10-minute video. It sits visible in the scene for a long time, and it didn't disrupt the meditation at all.
And rediscover the power.
You've had the Pro Max, the new phone, for a while.
So if you look at this one, there's a Virgin Galactic rocket rotating on the side. Obviously, you couldn't ship that rocket into this person's scene. So that's one thing. The other thing that we innovated here is we draw animations which actually capture consumer attention. So look at the comment.
Right. Yeah. It's
Since when do you get these positive comments on ads? It's very, it's very encouraging, because our thesis is if you do something pleasing to the consumer, or at least not disruptive, it's much better for the creator because they get higher engagement and you don't lose audience, and it's definitely better for the brand.
$8,000 on the tub.
Yeah.
So with install, I mean, we're in the 15 to 20 grand.
Again, they prefer this to the pre-roll to concession stand. I'm gonna stop.
Yeah.
I didn't want to like kill you with demos. I just wanted to give you a sense of, this is what we do.
And so, yes, that is, it's much less disruptive. And it's similar to me, again, I'm going to use, I sound like I watch way more sports than I actually do, because I don't have that much time in my life. But I've noticed recently, like when you watch a baseball game and there's just, a logo sort of superimposed on the pitching mound. And in a similar way, where it's not a 3D product, but it's a similar concept of, hey, I might not watch the commercials, but whoever's paying for that logo to be superimposed on the pitching mound is getting their advertising dollars in, because I can't not see it.
Yes, exactly. It's, we're starting to experiment with different ways to talk about this, because it's not only product placement, it's like in real life advertising, intrinsic advertising. It's trying to really start a movement that basically says the old equation of interruption, I'm not saying it's going to disappear, but we need a better way.
Well, and like you said, if I wanted to, if I'm Garnier and I want to do a product placement, I'd have to have that conversation, months, years, and at least months in advance, ship product, figure out, okay, well, how is this going to be in the shot, and then have the shot, have the ad filmed and produced before it ever hits the screen. From what I'm understanding, you're saying, I'm basically using Rembrand like a Google Ads sort of thing, but able to basically buy ad space in existing video content to say, well, hey, just insert my thing over here, in a way that's subtle. I mean, you're not putting it on the speaker's face. Hopefully.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, we balance creators and brands. So creators get to approve what happens just like brands do. So you don't have this situation where, you're just jamming brands down the creators' throats. The creators get a say. They get to approve everything. As a matter of fact, we don't put any legal language that says once we did it, you have to ship it. We give them total discretion. You don't like what we did, don't put up there. It's your organic channel. We want you to make content that your audience loves. We don't want to interrupt it. We're just going to hand you some money. It's found money for you. We've got creators who've been coming back every single week on every episode they do. They just load it up to us. It's just found money for them.
So what is that process like? So I've got Google Ads on my site. They don't make me any money, but they're there. But but I don't have anything any say in it really, other than I put a box on the side and I say, hey, this is where the Google Ads can go, and then they just show up. From what I'm understanding, you explained just now, it's more like I create this video that you and I are doing, send it to you, and say, hey, go ahead and throw some Garnier stuff in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's more like you create the video. When you're done, you send it to us, and then we might put Garnier, we might put another brand, we might put several. You get a say in what you want, and if you like it, you just upload it to your organic channel, and then we get your views. After the first 60 days, we pay you for a CPM times how many views you garnered.
Okay.
And the majority of the revenue goes to our creators.
How does it work? In terms of, I'm not going to ask you to give me exact dollar figures, but just relatively speaking, if I'm the brand, how does it compare to producing my own television commercial or or old-fashioned product placement?
Oh, it's definitely way more cost effective. You get a lot more viewership, and you're also targeting influencers that are culturally relevant to your Gen Z audience that is hard to find. And some percentage of our audience, sometimes 10 to 15% of the views, occur for people who literally have ads turned off because they've paid YouTube for the premium option.
Right.
And so you're reaching a generation that watches us ads, some of them who have it turned off, and at a cost model. The CPM models are way more attractive than doing a sponsored post, because a sponsored post, they're going to interrupt their show and then read something for about a minute. They have to go in and do the video. They have to get it approved by you. It's weeks of back and forth. It's a lot of work. So you have to pay them more for that. And there's a certain value for that. The problem is if you do that in every video, your audience starts dropping off because they hate those 1 to 2 minute videos. And so people will generally do it every third or fourth video. So what we say is everywhere else, just put us. There's no interruption. You don't have to do that work. You don't get as much money as a sponsored post, but you get more money than, the passive income you get from advertising. So it's somewhere in between, and the effort is more passive.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know why that reminded me, but the other thing that my son and I talk about all the time, whenever we are in the car and happen to be listening to the radio, which is rare because I don't like either the repetition of the songs, because it seems like no matter what radio station you listen to, they really only have 10 songs that they play on repeat. Yeah. But the DJs, especially the morning DJs, just drive us crazy. And and they always have like the ads where they get the DJ to do the, they get the radio personality to do the ad.
Yeah.
And we were talking one day, I said, based on these ads, I would expect these radio personalities to be perfect human beings. Like if all the things worked as advertised, I mean, they're hawking, laser hair removal, liposuction, juice cleanse, fitness, this, and if all of those, if they actually are doing all of those things and all of those things actually worked, they should be actually perfect people. But ultimately, again, I come back to, that sort of like, I don't see how that's even a compelling thing. Like, I don't know who is so enamored with a radio personality that just because that radio personality said, "Hey, I used this juice cleanse and it was great," that I'm like, all right, cool, let me go try the juice cleanse.
Yeah, I mean the problem, I'm a skeptic on interruptive ads, and what you're talking about is interruptive ads. But I have to say that some of it works. I mean, you're channeling your John Wanamaker, who would say half my advertising works, I just don't know which half. So some of it works. Like if you look at, Athletic Greens and Organifi, who do those kind of juice products, they've built significant businesses. And what they've found is those form of like sponsored ad reads drives attention to people who otherwise wouldn't know about them. And so even if it's every 20th customer who ends up buying it and then buying a subscription, it ends up justifying the cost, but it ends up annoying us, and the whole experience gets us eventually to stop listening to a medium with interruptive ads and instead pay a subscription to something that doesn't have ads.
Right.
That's the problem, is you're killing the golden goose as you go. And this is
True.
a way of creating a more sustainable model where commerce and content come together, and people can still get free content, but not in an annoying way.
Yeah, for sure. And I was going to say, even with the interruptive ads, I almost long for the old model of interruptive ads, because now when I watch, say, Hulu, with ads, because I'm not paying for the, the ad-free version or whatever, it seems like the diversity of ads is much smaller. Like they've only got like 3.
Yeah.
So it's like every commercial break, you see the same 3 commercials.
Yeah, that's the problem. High frequency on ads just kills you. It's like, come on, you're killing me.
Right. It's like, it's one thing. It's one thing to have an ad break in the content you're viewing. It's another thing to just every single ad break be the exact same commercials over and over and over. It's actually worse.
We definitely avoid that.
One of the things that I think this lends itself to as well, and that we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, was just generationally. So yes, me, myself, my friends, my coworkers, yes, we're likely to watch Netflix and Amazon Prime and such, Apple TV Plus, whatever, to avoid commercials. My kids, watch those things as well, but they're also getting a vast majority of their content is coming from TikTok.
That's right.
And those types of videos, once upon a time it was, Instagram or Snapchat or whatever, but TikTok is the thing. And if that's where they're getting their content, then you have to figure out how to advertise in a way that's going to get in front of that audience.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And there's been like the old way that people would attack TikTok and YouTube and Instagram is they basically pay a creator to go create content for the brand, and they pay them a big amount of money and hope they get a bunch of views. And today in TikTok, if you do an ad, a bunch of them won't work. Some of them are going to work really well, and then they burn out. The algorithm burns them out in about 7 days. So you have to keep pouring money into getting some influencers to do what you want. Our approach says flip the model. Ask the creator to create content their audience loves. Don't worry about the brand. Just please your audience and be authentic. And what we'll do is we'll integrate into the storyline in the right way. And that way you enter the consciousness of the consumer through the influencer they love without being annoying. And And I'm not saying the other way isn't going to continue. Brands will continue to pay some famous personalities to go do special stuff for them. We're not going to stop that. We're just making a more automated, less annoying vehicle to reach these Gen Z people who are not reachable in the old way.
Okay. You talked about Rembrand being a sort of a mashup of the former two companies. From the AI component, there's an AI element of embedding the product into the video. Is there, and I don't want you to you don't have to give away any secret sauce, but is there a process you have or an AI algorithm you have that helps you choose where on the video?
Totally.
At what point in the video does it make sense to place this ad? Where on the screen should this ad be in order to get the best attention?
It's a really good question. If you don't mind, let me answer two questions here. Let's just describe what is this generative fusion technology doing, and then let's talk specifically about the where. So generative techniques, other than ours, tended to take text and turn it into an image. And there they were trying to be creative. They wanted to put the astronaut on a horse on the moon as a scene because that's what you put in your text. Our mission is very different. We're fusing two different 2D models. A video is a 2D asset, even though your brain recognizes it as 3 dimensions. And the products that we get from our brands are 2D assets. We fuse them in 3 dimensions, and we do in a way where we have to avoid all hallucination, right? We didn't want the problems that you get with, the standard generative techniques. We had to literally train the laws of physics into the networks, so that when a video comes in, the first thing we do is like, okay, where's the camera? How is it moving and pointing? What are the different logical scenes? If you see, a lot of these podcasts, they'll switch back and forth 300 times in the course of a podcast. And so we have to continually recognize what scene we're in, what the depth is. Has the zoom changed? Has the lighting changed? What is?
I was going to ask about the lighting, because that's one of those things that you subconsciously pick up on. Even if you don't, you see the Garnier bottles sitting there, and you don't consciously say, hey, those look fake or whatever, but something in your brain says, wait a minute, but the lighting, the shadow is casting in the wrong direction.
Yeah. No, we work with the latest research and actually even have some collaboration with the university on, estimating 3D lighting models. It's a very, very interesting problem. And then you have to look at the depth of the surfaces, and you have to estimate the material reflectivity. So if you look at, there are some glasses behind you, your globe has a slight reflectivity to it. The fridge has a different reflectivity than the books. You have to estimate all of that. And then here is the hardest problem of all of them. See, this is like a pen, and when I put my hand in front of it, the pen disappears, because this is a real 3D world. But in a 2D world where you're modeling 3D, you have to capture all the motion interactions with fingers, with hair, with moving objects. And so literally we had to train our networks to understand and encode those concepts in it, so that when we get a video, we can figure out how to fuse the objects and make it look like it was filmed in the original. That's what we're doing. So that's why we call it generative fusion, because it's fusing objects. Now, if you go back to your question, though, where we place and how long, we basically have an analysis phase where we take a video and we try to ask ourselves the following question: how can I get the product in view early enough in the video? So as early as possible, maybe within the first minute if possible, but keep it in a logical scene that when the camera keeps coming back to the scene, it stays long enough, like maybe 20% of the video or so. And in a place in the scene where if your hands are moving or your head is moving, you're not constantly covering the object, right? So in your scene right there, your white space on that fridge is very nice. Or if you gave us permission, we can overlay a poster in one of your frames, right? Those would be the two pieces we would select in your scene. Some of our creators see how we work, and they purposely clear space on the fridge and say, yeah, I want to make more money, please, here you go. And in other cases, we've created virtual furniture. Like we've had walls where there was nowhere to put a 3D object, so we created a virtual shelf and then put the virtual product on the virtual shelf. So, we do things like that.
And even the way you described the, training the physics of it all, it reminded me of, conversations I've had in years past with animators of like I talked with like the Disney team behind like Big Hero 6 and stuff, and it's like the engines they use to understand the lighting, and from an animation perspective is the very similar concept, and understanding how does fabric flow and how does hair flow, depending on where the wind is, and all that kind of stuff, and how would an object fall if you dropped it, so having an AI that can understand and interpret all of those physics so that it provides a level of realism is important.
We are definitely standing on the shoulders of giants, people who came before us who solved problems like hair movement in Disney animation movies. We have people from NVIDIA in our team. We have people from Amazon, from Facebook. So it's, there's been a lot in the gaming world, in the animation world. A lot of the companies that came before us would use AI to figure out, hey, here's a movie with 3 minutes of kitchen time, put a product there. But then they'd hire VFX people, and those people would have to manipulate frame by frame, and it would take them like 4 weeks and $30,000 to do a video. When we came up with our idea saying the AI is going to do it, and it's going to be done completely computational, no VFX, that made us realize that instead of competing in the movie industry where people will tolerate something slow moving, we competed in influencers where you couldn't tolerate 3 weeks to do something. It's too expensive, it's too slow. That's where we knew we had our advantage, and that's where we focused. Initially, we will start tackling movie and TV too, but then we'll have the data advantage of way, way more videos processed in the influencer domain.
Okay. So from a sales perspective for Rembrand, are you pursuing both sides of that equation? Like you're going out and making, you're finding brands that are willing to advertise this way, but then you also have to go have relationships with the content creators and the influencers on the other side. Or do brands come to you and say, hey, I really just want to be in, I want to be on Mr. Beast's video. How, can you arrange that?
We definitely get inbound demand, advertisers coming to us and telling us what they want. And we're lucky to have that. You wake up one morning, you see some like really well-placed person from some large company coming in and say, I want to meet. And I'm like, heck yeah, love it. I've built a two-sided network before, and there are a certain skill it takes to build a two-sided network, because you never want to be imbalanced in your network where you have all these brands and then you have no content, or you have all this content and you have no brands. And, like the Oracle Data Cloud, which was this two-sided network, eventually became a $500 million a year business with 97 of the top 100 digital brands using our data. And some of the biggest data sources on the planet were, powering our marketplace. But I'll tell you, year one, it was nowhere near that. I remember celebrating when we had our first campaign. I remember like doing backflips when we first hit $30,000. I remember our first $1 million campaign, right? So it's the same thing here. You focus the network and say, I'm going to take a very specific type of content first, and I'm going to find a very specific type of brand that likes this, and I'm going to get higher density on both sides before I open it up to the next. And you start, incrementally expanding. And, that's where we're at. We now have, a bunch of, the top, world-class, some of the biggest beauty brands, some of the biggest, beverage brands, the biggest e-commerce player. The examples I showed you in the video were real, paying campaigns.
Yeah. It definitely seems like an interesting model, and like I said, as someone who's jaded about advertising in the first place and doesn't like interruptive ads, it seems much what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. It's just a much smoother interaction. That I watching the clips that you showed me, like I wouldn't watch that and be immediately annoyed about the product. Whereas, and I guess this is not entirely removed from what you're doing, but because of what I do, and I've actually reviewed almost every Microsoft Surface device that's ever been created, I'm always well aware when Microsoft has these product placements on like TV series. You'll see that everyone has a Surface. When you watch football games, they have a deal with the NFL and they use the Surface, and so like the Microsoft branding is like always there in your face. Sometimes it's more subtle than others, but for me, and maybe I'm more hyper aware because of what I do or whatever. Maybe it is subtle to some people that when maybe they don't actually notice that it's a Microsoft Surface that someone's using on a television show, but like it's always the first thing I see is like, oh, they've got a Surface. Microsoft must have paid for that.
Yeah, the brain is unbelievably powerful in how much signal it's picking up from everything. The fact that you're watching a show, trying to listen to the storyline of the show, but your brain still decided to say, Microsoft Surface seems to be showing up more in this show than it does in the wild. Why is that? And I'm always intrigued by how the brain picks up things like that. So like, let's say you're driving down the highway. Do you ever notice a license plate that it's clear that somebody like bought the words in it? It says, great or something, or some, for mom or something like that.
Yep.
What does that mean? It means that your brain actually saw 100 other license plates and saw no pattern that was interesting and ignored it and didn't bubble it up to your consciousness. But only when it saw the word that made sense, your brain calculated the probability and said, that is not a coincidence. That driver's telling me something, right? So it's amazing how the brain does that filtration.
Yeah, no, I've never really thought of that, but you're right. I mean, like, on some level, my brain is seeing when a license plate goes by me that's just, FKL 123, but I don't process it. I don't consciously, I'm not making any mental note of it or whatever. But when it drives by and it says, GR8DAY, I'm like, oh, look, it says Great Day on that license plate.
That's exactly the principle we're using in our advertising, which is say we don't just want to place a product in the background because we don't know if they're going to see it and ignore it or see it and mean something. That's why we lean into subtle animations that make you say, whoa, that's interesting. And if we can do that at a point in the video that might even have some positive emotion to it, we can create an emotional connection to you. That's the art and science we're really growing towards. And I can't tell you it's like a day one journey. This is like a creative palette that's going to change the way advertising is done. If you've ever heard this guy, Terry Kawaja, he's one of the most well-known bankers in the ad ecosystem. He was speaking at the 4A's big advertising conference with all the biggest advertisers. And he said, for 20 years, we've been spending billions of dollars building ad technologies that optimize how we target ads, how we serve ads, how efficient it is, each wave giving you like 10% improvements. And where the real way of driving effectiveness in advertising has never been touched by technology, and that's the creative itself. How you make the creative appealing to the human mind. And generative AI, for the first time, has allowed us to enter the world of creativity in a way that's scalable and technologically accessible. That's why we're excited about what we're doing, because it's now going to help us do not little 10% improvements here and there, but up to 10x improvements. You can break through to the human conscious.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it. It seems like I would agree with that. I have noticed some other things that the ad industry has been doing lately. One is, well, both of them are versions of interactive ads. So you're watching, YouTube TV or you're watching Hulu or whatever, and they go to their interruptive break, but instead of just showing you a commercial, it'll be like, Geico, and they'll be like, there's commercial ABC, pick which scenario you want to watch, and it gives you like a little synopsis of, do you want to watch the one about the guy that crashed into the pool? Do you want to watch the one about the guy at the baseball game? And so you get to pick which commercial you want to see. That's one version. The other version is, and I'm not sure which platforms this is on, but like, first of all, there's a lot more QR code stuff. Like, I'm going to show you this ad. I'm also going to give you the QR code so that you can go look at more stuff. But increasingly, there's like a connection between, watching this on on the television that's internet enabled, and it knowing about your phone. And like, as soon as the ad comes up, there's a thing that says basically, hey, do you want to get more information on your phone? And like, with like one click, you could pull up the stuff on your phone to get, to get more information on that. So, I mean, they are trying. They're trying to find ways to be like, how do we engage you? How do we get you to interact with this ad? How do we, hopefully get you to pay attention by letting you choose which ad you even want to watch?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's a great, that is a positive trend, and we are experimenting with QR codes also.
Okay. All right. Well, again, I all of this, it sounds very cool. It's like, where are your ads showing up now? Like, like what you showed on the clips or whatever. Like, would I see those on, during TV shows, or am I seeing those on YouTube? Am I seeing them on TikTok?
Today, the majority of it's on YouTube. We just started last month with TikTok, so really excited about that. We'll be doing some more there. Eventually, we'll do any video format because our technology doesn't even know that it's going to TikTok or YouTube. Our technology just takes a video and returns a video. The reason we started with YouTube is generally it's a wider screen format. You've got a lot of shows where there's table space and wall space, whereas TikTok tended to be a little bit closer to the face with a little bit less real estate around it. So that's why we started YouTube. But like I said, we last month expanded to TikTok, and we are going to roll through every format. We are going to start doing movies and TV.
I was going to say, TV shows could also come and say, look, instead of us doing this whole product placement thing, like, let's just generatively, insert some stuff. And you could also repurpose old content. I watch like reruns of The Office and reruns of whatever, Parks and Rec. Where you could weave that in.
Yeah, we're definitely having those conversations. Really excited about it. TV expanding in TV and movies is going to be huge. Like I said, we want to transform that industry instead of like 2 to 3 years in advance, or instead of hiring a team of 30 VFX people. We're going to do this with AI and make it a lot lower friction. And maybe allow you to target, show Liquid Death in LA and show Pepsi in New York and Perrier in Paris.
And I'm thinking out loud here. If I'm doing product placement in a TV show, doing it this way also gives me an opportunity to A/B test. It gives me an opportunity to, be doing it one way and saying, hey, you know what, that's not really working. What if we move the product over here? Whereas if I actually do product placement, it's hard coded into the video. That's harder for me to change.
Yeah, totally. Having N variants of place and brand allows you to measure things. Totally with you. Really exciting world of opportunities here.
All right. Well, very cool. Yeah, I'm gonna go look for some of the ads now.
Awesome. We could just follow up and point you to a few.
Yeah, that'd be great. Actually, I would like for you to do that so that I can include it with this podcast. I'll include links and say, hey, if you want to go look, see for yourself.
Awesome. We'll do so.
All right. Well, take care. Hope you feel better.
Thank you. And so what's your thought on what's your target on releasing the show?
It'll be not next week, but the week after, because I already have one lined up for next week.
I'm looking forward to it. I enjoyed the conversation with you. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you. And I'll be in touch and send a link and stuff when it's live.
Awesome. Have a good one.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
I appreciate you investing your time to listen to the podcast, but I also invite you to engage on social media. Please go like our Facebook page and follow @TechSpective on Twitter and Instagram. You can feel free to let me know what you like, let me know what you don't like, let me know if you love it, let me know if it sucks, and let me know what products you'd like to see reviewed or what questions you'd like to see answered in future posts.